सरस्वती महाभागे विद्ये कमललोचने विद्यारूपे विशालाक्षी विद्यां देहि नमोऽस्तुते। सरस्वती महाभागे विद्ये कमललोचने विद्यारूपे विशालाक्षी विद्यां देहि नमोऽस्तुते। सरस्वती महाभागे विद्ये कमललोचने विद्यारूपे विशालाक्षी विद्यां देहि नमोऽस्तुते। The last one you have copied down or not? Batuk Bhai. Yes, it is there. Thank you. Now here I will proceed slowly. I have a long story to tell. So instead of my telling the whole story, I will tell you briefly to refer to this book. In the middle chapters, where I have given the title Ecstasies Spring from Fire. You've seen that? Song 1, 184. The 186, I refer to him. It's a very lovely story of my life. 30 years I watched him.
The sun is left down. I assume it's in the fourth house in Sagittarius.
The sun is
It have to be in the fourth house in Sagittarius.
in the Navansha, the sun is in the fourth house. Right? That's what you want. Not mentioned here.
It's not on here.
Uh-huh.
So is the fourth? Yeah.
Okay. To Calcutta. Till 1954, it was the period of his fifth lord, Mercury, which gave him both his two children and also aroused his deepest spiritual interests. You see, I am repeatedly stressing the role of the fifth lord again. Fifth lord's dasha. Jupiter, Saturn, then Mercury, the fifth lord. Then came the period of Ketu, in the fifth house aspected by Mars. In the fifth house aspected by Mars. Now the fifth house like the fifth lord, like the moon, is that part of your body which receives electric shocks. Right? Mars aspecting Ketu in the fifth house. He was deceived by people whom he trusted. He neither took revenge nor deviated from the path of dharma. Very, very extraordinary. He had no bitter feelings towards people who cheated him, who deceived him. This Ketu in the fifth house is the fires out of which sprang the ecstasies of his spiritual life. But first the fire, then the burning, then the examination to see the sustaining spiritual power. Now the power gets stabilized. The target is set. Spiritual life became primary for him and everything secondary. In the Ketu period, he got terrible shocks. And the Ketu period is followed by Venus. Venus is the fifth lord in the 12th house in the birth horoscope. Is the Lagna lord in the 12th house with the fifth lord. Right? Is the 9th lord in the 12th house in the Navansha. Is the 12th lord in the 8th house with Jupiter in Vinshansha. Down. If you could give me some more coffee. I'm sorry I'm disturbing you. Because I am going to relate a very lovely incident of my life. I want you to go home and think sweetly of what I am telling you now. You will feel inspired by something. I have mentioned, pardon? Pardon? Vinshansha. Sarvabhutanam Hriddeshe Arjuna Tisthati Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantrarudhani Mayaya. In the 18th chapter of the Gita, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, God is there in everyone's heart. But He makes you dance to the tunes of Maya. And you are saved from it only when you begin to worship Him properly. Very lovely experience. At some stage in life, everyone has to decide, whatever happens, my spiritual life is what I am not going to sacrifice. You do all your worldly duties, earn well, become a multi-millionaire, become a billionaire, nothing but spiritual demands of life must be met. The spiritual demands of life must be met. I will discuss astrology on the basis of this horoscope and the story of spiritual unfoldment In the case of this European male Frenchman, it was only contact for 2 readings, nothing more. In this case, it was an observation of 30 years, 30, much more than your age. In the Ketu period, all the deception was there, but Ketu in the 5th house, aspected by Mars, Mars the 12th Lord. The role of the 12th Lord, I told you, Guru's ashram. As it happened, my Guruji, because we are the disciples of the same Guru. In my Guruji's ashram, he met some people with whom he had a business deal, and those people cheated him. He got the shock of his life, but he said no. Since I have taken religious initiation and we have such a great Guru, the Guru may be testing me, in any case I will not take revenge. He never took revenge. He could have taken revenge and ruined those people. He never did that. His family was opposed to him for quite some time, naturally his wife, but anyway that got balanced. Why it got balanced? The man was fortunate, Jupiter in the 7th house. See that? Then I got on very well with him. That story I have described, ecstasy spring through fire, 14, 15, 16, 17. You will see how people have gone through fire and have evolved into higher beings. When I met him, first time saw him in 1962, 33 years ago. In 67, December, when I was posted to Calcutta, he was in Calcutta. For 2 years, we were in close contact with each other. By that time, he had gone sufficiently deep into his sadhana. He had decided that sadhana had to be done at any cost. So he would go to the busy markets in Calcutta where he had his shop, where he establishment, his son, and sitting there with his chair on the legs on the table, smoking, looking at the ceiling with totally vacant eyes. What is that state in which you see the spiritual development I described here? You can understand the crowded markets of India. It is not like USA, you are driving so long and on the way you see nobody. It is not like in that. In India you find it's a whole crowd everywhere. In the busiest crowded market of Calcutta, his office was there. I used to meet him. And everyone started saying, this man is getting lost in sadhana, is not doing his business. You know, all types of stories spread against you everywhere. So he was aware of it. So he developed a trick. He would keep his eyes open, not closed. He developed the habit of doing jhana totally with his eyes open. So that when you went to him, you did not know he was in dhyana. Then when a man gets into that condition, I am describing something spiritual, not strictly astrology. You watch the breath of the man, slowly. He cannot control it. The breath controls him now. And it develops its own rhythm. And in some cases, what is known as natural bhasrika goes on. I have seen one man for 6 hours in this condition and talking to me normally. But this was not under control. A great Mahatma he was, great yogi. I described that. So his condition was what is known as sukshma. Sukshma means subtle. Sometimes you almost feel you are not breathing. I knew him and he knew me very intimately. The sadhana of both of us was going on very well. I had all the quarrels with people in the ashram because Guruji used to look after the ashram. The donors who came and gave the money, they thought ashram was their property. I said, I will never allow that attitude. Once you have donated, that money is not yours. Well, such pleasant things were there, but they became good friends later. But I had a terrible quarrel with them. So I used to tell him, both of you and me, Batuk Dada, both are incurable. I also have the same condition. I don't know what time I'll get into meditation. But I control it very well. You cannot notice it. In his case, because he had to move less, he could sit in one place longer. So he is sitting there with his legs on the table, smoking. Then open his eyes. Again look at you. Again open your eyes. And phone comes, hello. Attend to it and again go into that. I have written in one place. To disturb him was a crime. To talk to him a sin. Half an hour, 40 minutes, you just sit and watch the man, totally lost. Eyes are open, and if someone comes, you would attend quickly. He will attend, talk on the phone, again put it down. One sentence or 2 sentences, monosyllabic answer on the phone. Yes, no, it is available, it is not available, thank you, put down. Again go. The beautiful condition spiritually he went on developing. In 1969 end December, I was transferred out of Calcutta to far western part of the country known as Gujarat. In Gujarat, in Rajkot. And Rajkot happened to be the birthplace of Batuk Bhai. One day he wrote to me from Calcutta that he was coming to attend marriage, a marriage in Rajkot. But he wrote to me, it will be difficult for me to stay with you because I have so many relations in Rajkot, they would get annoyed. You know, India, we are very family-minded people. He would have been happier to stay with me, but he would have to stay with his brother-in-law or sister or someone. I said, okay, I understand that. But he came to Rajkot and the next day he came running to my house. He said, no, I cannot stay there. All worldly talk goes on. I can't stand it anymore. I am very happy with you in my house. Well, we sat. I described in one place. Batuk Bhai would be sitting there, I would be sitting here in my Rajkot residence. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours gone. I said, we two were like Buddhist lamas sitting in the same cave and not talking to each other. Now he was a Jain. You know, Jains are not Hindus, or it's a Protestant part of Hindus, whatever they call it. Buddhists, Jains, Hindus. Dwarka is a Lord Krishna's place, Dwarka, in Gujarat. One day he said, Rao, I am a Jain. I have been born and brought up in Gujarat, Saurashtra, but I never went to see Dwarka. And you have been going so often. will you take me to Dwarka? I said, yes, I will take you to Dwarka. Some people in India have a rule that first time when you visit a great pilgrimage, you must spend 3 nights there. I said, I cannot spend 3 nights because I have to come back to office. We will go on a Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday night I would get into the train and get back. You spend 1 or 2 days more, and after your 3 night rule is over, you come back. He said, okay. When we went there. I took him to the Dwarkadhish temple. In the Dwarkadhish temple, I was whenever I went to the temple, I would recite Vishnu Sahasranam. Me. Someone is doing this and I am doing the Sringara decoration of my Lord. So when the Dwarkadhish temple, 3 times they open, 3 times they close. He was closing. He told me and Batuk Bhai, you can remain inside because you are doing the Gita, come on. So Batuk Bhai was there and I was there. All otherwise the doors were closed from inside. And I was sitting and doing this, and I saw Batuk Bhai standing right in front of the image with his hands on the railings and tears dropping down. I was watching him from a distance. And it must have gone on for 1 or 2 hours. Then we came out. When you are going back, he caught hold of my hand, a man who controlled his emotions beautifully. You could never see him getting into any emotional chit-chat type of thing. Very controlled emotions, say 1 or 2 sentences, that is all. He said, it's good, I like it. No more. Man very economical in his expression. He just caught hold of my hand. He said, Rao, Radha was so beautiful. Krishna seemed to pale into insignificance. You know Radha Krishna. I knew him, I looked at him, I kept quiet. I didn't respond. We went back. Now in the afternoon again I came, brought him. Again he stood like that. Again his eyes were full of tears. And again he said, oh, how beautiful Radha is. I cannot imagine anyone in the world can be so beautiful. I kept quiet. In the night again brought him. Again same. Next morning, 4th visit, again the same. Next morning, the 5th visit, again the same. Next evening, 6th visit, and after that I would get into the train and get back. And he would stay back. So when you are going to for the last visit, I said, Batuk Bhai, Dada, you will have to keep this experience a secret. You know, a great guru will not allow his disciple to disclose his spiritual experiences. You are forbidden to talk about it. In this book, I have talked about the experiences of many. I give only 1 or 2 small experiences of mine. I will not talk about my experience. I said you will have to keep it a secret, but in any case, I will inform Guruji about it. And someday later, I will write about it. He died 3 years ago. Batuk Bhai. He said, what is it? Said, I have taken you to Dwarkadhish temple. In the Dwarkadhish temple, there is only Krishna, there is no Radha. He said, what? He went inside, he saw, yes, there was only Krishna, there is no Radha. When he returning, he caught hold of mine and said, Rao, you were right. That's all. Such economical expression. I said, you have had the darshan, realization of Lord Krishna's consort Radha 5 times. I have gone there, I am seeing only Krishna. I have not seen it. And you have seen Radha 5 times, and in that condition I have seen watching all the time. He and me alone in the temple. Inside the temple, when it is closed from inside, the pujari is doing the puja, the sringar, the decoration. If such a man who was doing black marketing, who was evading taxes, who was doing customs, everything, every possible irregularity in life, got shocked, was deceived, but he decided at the age of 40, whatever else may be there, my first priority is my sadhana. And his sadhana meant essentially worship of truth. And the more beautiful lesson which I have to tell about him is, he never regularly sat down in an asana at any regular time. Never. Totally non-punctual, totally irregular. In other words, all that the gurus will tell you, sit down at a particular time, at a particular this thing, meditate, do this, that, he did just nothing of that type. Anywhere, lying, sitting, he practiced it. In all conditions, lying down on the bed, walking on the road, he practiced it. He said, I know, someday my body will get paralyzed or someday anything can happen to me. I should be able to do that in all conditions. He practiced it. And very extraordinary experience. He sat here 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours with you, would utter only 2 or 3 sentences. He did not need any human company. Now go back to his horoscope. Born in Jupiter Dasha. Then comes the Saturn Dasha. So very early in his life, he starts the business activity. Now he moves away to another place, Calcutta, from his birthplace. Saturn Dasha is followed by the Dasha of Mercury in the 12th house, Guru's ashram, 5th Lord. In other words, he is constantly in touch with Guru, coming to Guru's ashram, visiting regularly. Followed by Ketu, aspected by Mars, the 12th Lord. In touch with Guru again. The 5th Lord in the 12th house, Mercury, followed by Ketu in the 5th house, followed by Venus is with the 5th Lord in the 12th house, followed by Sun again in the 12th house. You see, now Mercury, Ketu, Venus, Sun. Constantly he was in touch with the Guru and the ashram and went on doing sadhana. The 12th house is the house of moksha. You remember in 4, 8, 12? I will read the last page of this book of mine. He never harbored even any feelings of bitterness toward those who had deceived him and did vicious scandal mongering against him. He had such jnana and vairagya, knowledge, divine knowledge and detachment, as I have not seen any of the well-known astrologers in the age group of 50 to 85. Astrologers should have more jnana and vairagya. because you are seeing the horoscope, but I have not seen astrologers having it. I will go to the next para. In the Navansha, Ketu in the Lagna is again aspected by Jupiter, but not without the aspect of Mars. If you see in the Navansha, Ketu is in the Lagna, is aspected by Jupiter. It is this aspect of Jupiter that sustained him through all those days when he burned in fire and came out of it all, shining like gold. Unless gold is burned in fire, it will not shine. It is what my Guruji Swami Paramanand Saraswati always said. It is what happens to all sadhaks. There is no instant spiritual success. No cheap video cassette conversion into nirvana. You know what I mean? Don't know? You know what I mean? What? Tell me what? In USA, you have a 6-week course of avatarhood. Do you know that? Avatarhood. In 6 weeks, you can become an avatar. Yes, $500. You know that. $500 or $1,000, 3,000. 5-week course and you become an avatar. Pardon? Pardon?
The experience has to be honest, or there's no.
Yes. So there is nothing cheap in spiritual life. You have to pass through fires. No one can escape that fire. And God will keep on protecting you all through that fire. In this book, Yogis Destiny Wheel of Time, when you go back home, please read S, the story of S. That will be chapter 19th chapter, it should be SD, page 192. I will not tell you anything more about her because you will lose interest. You read the story yourself. You can ask me tomorrow, day after. But I always quoted her example before persons and said, look at this. How people can develop spiritually in spite of such a background. And we who boast of very good background, this, that, and where are we compared to her? I will not tell you anything more. Just read that. There is hope for everyone in life. There is a spiritual life. Yes?
I have a question. I heard that the planet in your Rashi that's the highest degree, if it's in the 12th sign, in the Navash, that's a sign which you will attain.
That is Gemini astrology. I taught it. I took a class there. Instead of hearing, you can get India from that ashram, Ash Vidya Gurukulam. This is Gemini astrology. Don't say heard. Do the whole exercise yourself. That is known as Atma Karaka. That is known as Karakansha. I took a whole 3-day course. I taught it before coming here. Now go back to the birth horoscope before I conclude. Born in Jupiter Dasha, followed by Saturn, then Mercury in the 12th house, 5th Lord, Ketu in the 5th house aspected by the 12th Lord, Sun in the 12th house, with the fifth lord, and moon not afflicted by Mars but only aspected by Saturn. Again in the Navansha, you find only moon Mars. Saturn spared the influence of Saturn. Again in the Vinshansha, you find Jupiter, Venus, moon, but no influence of Mars or Saturn. So he went through normal prosperity of life, lot of money he earned, everything he earned, and in a very sweet way, after burning in Ketu period only. Ketu period. That 7 years all the burning came. 7 years. Then he balanced himself. And the way he evolved, I have not seen anyone else evolve so beautifully. I watched it most closest. In the Vinshansha, Venus is the 12th lord. In the Navansha, Venus is in the 12th house. In the birth horoscope, Venus is in the 12th house. All those great experiences of his life I am speaking of happened in the Dasha of Venus. Venus is the Lagna Lord also. And the 9th Lord of the Navansha. And the 12th Lord of the Vinshansha.
Other than the Mars aspect to Ketu in the birth chart, why was the Ketu period such a period of birth?
Beautiful question. Very lovely question. Thank you. I should have developed that myself. I have told you, Rahu prepares you for extrovert sadhana and Ketu for introvert sadhana. In choosing this, I gave you the example of the Frenchman, Jupiter Rahu period. Comes running all the way from Paris to India to seek a spiritual remedy. And this man in the Ketu period burned so much, he developed that habit of sitting like this and doing this. Ketu period. Or the burning, but burning is outside. Inside you are sitting in an air-conditioned room. A true sadhaka is always experiencing that great divine protection. You are sitting inside that air-conditioned room where you experience divine bliss. But outside world all this was happening. What Ketu does is, Ketu cleans up by burning out all those points, obstacles in your life which can prevent your spiritual growth. Ketu is a burner, is burning out and aspected by Mars. So the 7-year period is preparing for what? Preparing for higher spiritual life. He asked me repeatedly, once, twice, thrice, to see the horoscopes of his grandchildren. He would come and be sitting with me. I would see others' horoscopes, but I never answered his question. One day he got annoyed with me. He said, right in my presence I see you examining others' horoscopes and telling, but you don't see my grandchildren's horoscope. I said, I will not do that. I will not see. He said, why? I said, your son Mahipat has a right to come and ask me about his children. You with your spiritual condition should not get attached to your grandchildren anymore. They don't exist for you. He kept quiet. He said, you have given me very good instruction. You see, in India, the affection for grandchildren and then great-grandchildren, it goes on. So I said, now at one stage you must stop. Well, he went on evolving in that manner, and towards the end of his life, almost it was 18 hours experience of dhyana and samadhi for him. In any condition, he would just go into trance. His son totally took over from him, his business. His wife supported him fully always, Jupiter in the 7th house. So the man's burning was in the world outside. At home, everyone cooperated with him beautifully. Yes?
There are some interesting conditions in this horoscope. Mars is Vargotama, Rahu and Ketu are Vargotama,
Yes.
Mercury is Vargotama,
Yes.
plus there's Parivartana Yoga, exchange of signs between Mars and Mercury. So there's this great strength of all four of those planets and also a big connection.
Yes. Very correct. So all this, now you see the importance of the 5th, 9th and 12th. The dashas not merely of the Lord, 5th Lord, but the dashas connected with the 5th Lord. That is the transference of the duties of the 5th Lord. And this is the one case where I could take the details and perhaps write a book of 300 pages on him alone. I know so much about so many of them. 30 years I have watched about 100 of these people evolve spiritually. Therefore, I will conclude by reminding you that in the last conference, in the evening there was a talk. You remember there was yoga and spirituality. Gayatri Devi, R.D. Krishnan and Chakrapani and myself. It was only 2 hours. At the end, when we came out, some people said it should have been a full day. Some other people came out with something, a criticism which I liked. When there is a good constructive criticism comes, it should be welcome. Those organizers felt hurt. I told them, don't feel hurt. It is a good criticism which has come. Keep a note of it. The criticism was, if you take up the horoscopes of well-known saints, Yogananda, Ramakrishna Paramhans, Anandamayi Ma, you prove nothing. You take up the horoscopes of ordinary people whom you have watched and whose story of spiritual evolution you have watched. I told them I have more than 500. If I come and begin to tell that in USA, at the rate of 5 to 6 hours a day, in 7 days also, I will not be able to finish 1/3 of my material. 30 years I watched them very closely, not for 1 or 2 days. I told them there is hope for everyone, there is spiritual combination in every horoscope. Once you draw the attention of the person to that and tell him, look here, this is the one area I do not want you to neglect. Finish. You do whatever you like, but this one area you keep beautiful. One corner of that small little corner of my life, that will be this radiant, sublime, beautiful corner. Everything else will be what it is. But that area I will keep, that is there you keep the lamp of spirituality burning always. That is what these people did. The stories I will tell you of Mrs. S, the story of SD, Batuk Bhai. This if you read, you will see how these people went through all the fires of life. But there is absolutely no sense of disturbance. Outwardly, if you saw them, you'd say, what a terrible life these people are leading. But they're nothing terrible. Inwardly, absolutely balanced, very fine equipoise. Anapekshah shuchih dakshah udasinah gatavyatha sarvarambha parityagi. In the Gita, that condition described, these are the living examples I have seen of people coming to that point of spiritual equipoise. So, when you do counseling, first of all, now see the points I have brought out for the first time. In these books, people were complaining, and one of the criticisms wrongly made in USA by someone was that in Vedic astrology they don't talk about psychology and spirituality. I said they don't talk about it because there is no need to talk about it. You go to an astrologer and ask him what questions. You ask questions about what you do not have and what you want to have. In India, spiritual guidance is what we get in plenty from gurus and yogis. No one goes to an astrologer to ask for it. In USA, it is necessary for you to concentrate on the spiritual content of a horoscope when a person comes and tell him or her very properly. Prepare for a shock. A shock is what you must get. And after that shock comes the balancing. And this balancing is always beautiful and sublime when it is spiritual. I'll stop here. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
In the morning, you said that the exchange in the Shamsa chart between 5 and 10 is very unusual and significant. But why 5 and 10 as opposed to 9 and 10? Or
Good. Very good question. Very good question. 5 is the Purva Janma Punya or mantra. And the 10 is the sacred duties you will perform in this life. Karma, sacred duties. Karma.
is it more concrete than 9?
Pardon?
Is it more
No, it is not that. What happens is the emphasis. In some case, for example, in my case, I can work out my destiny only by serving people more and more. I wanted to give up astrology 3 times in my life. I could not give up. I am a bachelor, I have no problems in my life. Right? Actually no problems. But not a single day passes without my sharing others' burdens and others' problems. In India, not a single day passes. So it makes no difference to me. So what happens? A man born with so much burden of the karma, not his own. The karma is perhaps the karma of a man who has to serve others. In that case, the 10th house has to assert more. But if the man is vanishing into the recesses of his heart in sadhana, the 12th house which will become predominant. If the man is potentizing something, it is the 9th house which will become predominant. If the man is likely to have more of the peculiar occult experiences, it is in this book, many places I have given those combinations. The type of experiences you have, occult experiences, depending upon the planetary combinations in the horoscope. Here, there, somewhere or the other, I went on mentioning those things. At least 30, 40 or 50 combinations you will find in this book. But it is not a book mainly on astrology. It is a book on yogis where I combined astrology because I had the supreme advantage of a yogi telling you something about you. Then I seeing your horoscope to see why he told you what he told you. The yogi whom I trusted. The yogi who could foresee your future. Then I saw that. Then I worked out. And after a period of 20 years when it happened, after the period of 30 years when it happened, I said, look at this. The yogi saw it in a flash and I had to take so much time to see it. So how inferior we astrologers are compared to true yogis. That is the final